Its members will be visiting schools across the country in a campaign against pit toilets. The party is accusing the Minister of Basic Education, Angie, and her department of not taking responsibility for the dangers caused by pit toilets. We are now joined by Itumeleng Mothlabane, Equal Education's head in the Eastern Cape, to tell us about the situation in that particular province and the work that they have been doing, calling for an end to the use of pit toilets for learners. Thank you very much, Itumeleng, for your time this afternoon. If you could paint a picture for us in terms of the Eastern Cape, how far and wide does this go?
I mean, the Eastern Cape is still home to the biggest infrastructure backlogs generally, but when you look at the issue of paint pit latrines, it's still much exacerbated in our province. Right now, we have about 1,473 pit latrines, and this is according to the NEEMS report. As Equal Education, we have found it hard to say what is the exact number of paint pit latrines in our province because of the underreporting, even from the Department of Education and other stakeholders that are involved in the fight against paint pit latrines. But when you also look at some of the targets that the Eastern Cape Department of Education has had in the past couple of years to provide paint pit latrines, they range from about 24 to 30-something a year. So that shows you that the progress is achingly slow. When I was looking earlier at the statistic when the president in 2018 started the SAFE initiative, we had about 1,593 plain pit schools with plain pit latrines. And so it shows you that if this year we have 1,473, there hasn't been much difference. And it's concerning because even those that are off statistic now doesn't guarantee that they were provided with sanitation. It could be a school that was rationalized, which is something that we see more often from the Eastern Cape Department of Education as a cure for schools that have bad infrastructure. So it's still, we're still severely affected and learners still go to unsafe and undignified schools.
I'd like for us to expand on that, the direct consequence on the learners.
I mean, learners, in the recent story, we've had a learner die. Unfortunately, in 2018, we also had Motshekga lose her life in an undignified way in a plain pit latrine. But that's just the incidents that we've seen on media. But we also have learners that are affected by health issues, the dignity of young girls in their schools. And in some schools, if a learner is sick and they need to use the toilet more often, it means that on that particular day, they miss an entire day of school. That also goes to teachers who cannot use these undignified toilets that go to their own homes, sacrificing the time for teaching and learning. So the situation really affects how the results of those learners in these schools that have compromised infrastructure become, and continuing to be in an environment that is undignified on its own is uninspiring, and the environment that we want for learners is an environment that's going to inspire them to excel. And so then if the conducive environment is compromised in that way, really the motivation to be at school is also compromised.
Speaking of an inspiring environment, sanitation infrastructure is but one problem amongst a number of others. While great progress has been made, yes, but you're still finding in 2023 there are learners, in particular also young boys and girls whose lives are in danger because of the long treks that they have to make to get to school. And when they get there, they find what? Outside of the pit toilets, when we talk about infrastructure and creating an inspiring environment.
I mean, scholar transport is also one of the big issues in terms of provision and making sure that learners are able to get to school safe. We have seen increasingly incidents of learners being attacked on their way to school or back. I cannot imagine a learner that walks for more than 10 kilometers, how they are able to concentrate in their first period of school. And in the Eastern Cape, where we've seen increasing cases of school being merged, closed, or rationalized, then it means that the need for scholar transport and learners walking longer distances is greater as the years go by. But what we've also witnessed is very poor procuring in terms of paying these contractors. So it means that for the first 2 months, learners are left without scholar transport. And this really does compromise the teaching and learning time, because it risks learners coming to school late, coming to school tired, or never actually getting to school because they were attacked on their way to school. And it continues to be one of the issues that local education is fighting against in this province.
Itumeleng, it's 2023. It seems as if almost every year we speak about the same thing. According to the work that you do, where's the resistance? Why are we slow, as you mentioned, with this progress?
I mean, we have the laws, the law of norms and standards for public school infrastructure that tells us clearly how a school should look like. And so it even has deadlines and targets. And in 2018, we went to court to say that law must be tightened. So we're confident that it's at least tight. But now the research that we did in 2018, zooming into the Eastern Cape and why the delay in the provision of school infrastructure, pointed us to implementing agents, the state agents that receive money from governments in order for them to provide school infrastructure. There are major delays in terms of procuring and the payment of contractors, but also there isn't accountability for contractors that are failing to do their job. As a result, one of our campaigns at Equal Education, it is to say that National Treasurer in the Eastern Cape Department of Education must take an initiative to blacklist contractors that are not doing the right job in our schools. But also there is no involvement of parents and other members of schooling communities when the department does projects. So you have a school that will be on the project list for years, or that school will be allocated an amount of money that will be insignificant in the next 5 years because of inflation, interest, and so those issues that has to now go back and they have to revisit the plan and the budget allocation. However, as Equal Education, we're also looking with a sharp eye at the irregular expenditures that we've seen in our province. You know, in 2022, there was a sum of 2 million that was forfeited by the Eastern Cape Department of Education because of unspent funds. And that trend has continued into this year, where we have forfeited 100 million. Those are significant amounts that could make a difference in our education system, in the infrastructure in our province. But we see that the capacity within the department, they are not able to plan correctly, but they're also not able to carry out the procurement process of these projects for school infrastructure to be provided.
Very quickly for us, is there anything that you and I can do?
Yes. Being part of the steering committees, as soon as your school is part of a project list, it is important that parents are able to monitor and know the contractor, know the implementing agent, and start a relationship with the Eastern Cape Department of Education, but also in terms of monitoring statistics, because I said there is underreporting of the issues that are in our schools. So the truth and the reality of the learners' experiences in schools is not out there. And so it is important that as the public, we put into the public domain the information about the way our schools are and the conditions that our learners are studying under.
Itumeleng Mothlabane is with Equal Education in the Eastern Cape.